Muslim Britain wants many different things, but there are some issues on which there is a striking consensus. Conflict will be the result when this consensus is opposed to the values of British democracy. And for a tiny number of radicals, these are conflicts to be settled through violent action. Finding a way to deal with these issues, therefore, is vital.
If British society, if British politicians can't do deals with Muslims where there's a strong Muslim consensus, then we really do have a problem, because then moderate Muslims will be thrown back onto the radicals' agenda.
One of the fundamental values that Britain holds dear is freedom of speech. But it's a value which Muslim Britain rejects. An overwhelming number of British Muslims believe that free speech must have its limits, that no one should be allowed to insult their religion. These tensions came to a head when the Danish cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad with a bomb on his turban were circulated all over the world.
They have come together to insult the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
In London, extreme protests followed, showing both the fury of some Muslims and the severity of the punishments they appeared to demand. Although only held by a very small minority, it is these views that seem to pose the greatest threat to the tolerance that so defines this country. To understand why some Muslims take such an uncompromising position, I talked to Mohammed, a 23-year-old British-born Muslim. He lives in North London with his family, but wanted to meet me in a coffee shop. Mohammed studied at Art College and now works as a freelance graphic designer. How do you feel about the, those cartoons that abused the name of the Prophet?
If people have cartoons insult the messengers, it affects globally the Muslims worldwide. Not 1.5 Muslims in the UK, 1.5 billion Muslims around the world.
I mean, they were not published in this country.
Where was the condemnation? Where was the demand that these kind of cartoons be stopped, that the people be punished?
Beheading the people who did it.
Yeah.
Is that what should have happened?
Now, in Islam, there is punishment for certain crimes. Like, for example, if somebody is murdered, we do have punishment in Islam, death penalty. Or somebody is raped, we believe in death penalty for them. It's the same thing, anybody who insults the messengers, any messenger, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, we believe they have tested their sentence.
The offence caused by the Danish cartoons also led many more moderate Muslims to protest. They did not call for such extreme punishments, but they still wanted to stop the publication of anything that offended their religion.
At any time, when those insults.
People who publish the cartoon of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam should be punished to a certain extent, because that was so hurtful and it was so offensive. And you know what? Everyone should be like sensitive towards other people's faith.
In Brixton, I met 29-year-old Abdul Haq, born a Christian, converted to Islam at 17. He's one of the many who believe there's no room for compromise on freedom of speech. A new law is the best way to ensure no one offends his religion. From a non-Muslim perspective, we say free speech, you can basically say whatever you like. What's wrong with that?
The problem with that is that where are the kind of boundaries or the limitations to that? That is the problem.
What are the boundaries and limitations for you?
For me, it would be kind of those things which maybe some people might hold as sacred.
But do you think we should have laws to state that?
It would be preferable. Because otherwise, if there weren't these kind of legislations in place, then people obviously are going to get very irate. There are common grounds with regards to respecting each other. As I mentioned before, I wouldn't kind of disrespect any of your relatives or your family members or your mother.
So how do you stop people coming out onto the streets with placards saying, behead these people who abuse the name and image of the Prophet?
Even though we find that repulsive, behead those who insult Islam, at the same time, it's equally repulsive. I mean, that which sparked it off in the first place, it was equally repulsive, if not even more so.
It's really very clear that we have no centre ground on this issue. There are things that Muslims want protected as sacred and unassailable. And on the other hand, this is a secular society in which religious sensitivities are hardly an issue. So either we self-censor or we publish and we create mayhem. Further conflict may be unavoidable, as Muslims are united in wishing to curb the right to speak freely.